Hello and welcome again to the MA Political Sociology presentation on religion. And I'm here with my dog Stanislav to suggest to you some possible conclusions that we might draw in relation to the interactions between religion and politics, religion and society in the contemporary period. Now, the conclusions that I'm going to offer you are broad but not exhaustive. There are a number of different directions that we can go with this material on religion, but let me offer a list of the ones that I think might possibly be the most important. First of all, there is always some kind of relation between religion and the state. And this is regardless of the principle that in most contemporary political communities, there is some degree of separation between the institution of religion and the institution of the state, regardless of the question of whether a state has an official religion or not. Second, religion, in particular, in its origins as an expression of the spirit of the collective and of the community, has from the very beginning of its history some of the properties of the state, or some of the properties of the ways by which states legitimate themselves. And at the same time, you can say that states, and in particular modern states, as they become more complex and as they develop more ways of expressing and expanding their authority, has some of the properties of religion. And we can talk about this in terms of so-called civil religion. We can also talk about this in terms of the contemporary phenomenon that we've come to describe under the term political religion. Third, as societies become more diverse through the processes of globalization and through the processes of advancing modernity and internationalization, things change in the relation between religion and politics and religion and society. And one of the things that change is that the models that developed in Europe of a state religion and of increasing division between state and a state religion and of a particular position for dominant religions becomes globalized, and it becomes globalized in a way that has some effects that are intended and anticipated and other effects that are unintended and not anticipated. Fourth, we can talk about the process of secularization in a lot of ways. But what we need to understand about secularization is that it is a complex process. It may mean, in many instances, probably in most instances, that religion has less of a role in the state than it does before the modern period. But it also means that the state takes on more of the characteristics and properties of religion and comes to behave more like a religion in some ways that are sometimes unexpected. A fifth point that I would offer, I talk about totalitarianism here as I describe it in the slide, but it applies to some softer forms of the assertion of power as well, authoritarianism and religiously justified authority. Totalitarianism is a movement that has the direction of turning the state into a religion, and this is reflected in systems where authority is less strong than in totalitarian systems as well. We can say something similar about so-called political religion or fundamentalism, that it does the same thing. It turns the state into religion, but uses a logic of religion rather than a logic of state power to justify doing this. And then finally, a point about post-socialism, that is, we can talk about the assertion of the power of religious institutions in post-socialist environments as a reassertion of religion, but it might make more sense to understand it, at least in part, as the emergence of a new role for religion, of new forms of interaction of religion with state institutions. So these are some possible conclusions that I would suggest. They are not the only conclusions that are available. There are many more, and I hope that we'll be taking on some more of those through your contributions in our discussion.